Good evening, this is Hamburg Steve, wishing you a very pleasant evening and welcome back to my channel. And Brexit, finally, oh my God, finally, gasp, 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 we're down to the wire. Finally, there is going to be an election in Britain, and that will take place on December the 12th. Yes, after a third attempt to get an election called. Now, because it's not the regular election date, Boris Johnson needs 2/3 of the House to vote in favour of an election. That's the a 2/3 majority, and the vote came in at 438 to 20. Now, he convinced enough Labour MPs to vote in favour of this. Now, Jeremy Corbyn is saying that he got what he wanted, which was the EU extension to January the 31st. However, he did not get what he wanted, because what he really wanted was an absolute ironclad guarantee that a no-deal Brexit was off the table. And that is not off the table. Like I say, Labour MPs voted for it. And now, of course, Jeremy Corbyn is being called out for leading the Labour Party into a disaster. An election is the worst thing that could happen. Jeremy Corbyn had been advised by his team not to have a election just before Christmas, which again would surely anger voters. You know, this is a very heavy shopping period, and to be burdened with that and all the advertising that goes along with an election, it is going to be absolutely insane. And anyway, already the bookies are calling for a Conservative majority. So we're looking at a Conservative majority, and in recent polling, the Conservatives are running at 37%, the Labour Party at 22%, and Brexit Party. Now, I think they will surge during the election. They're down at 11% right now, and the Liberal Democrats are 18%. So it's going to be a Conservative majority, almost for certain. The polls have been wrong, but the British are so angry right now at the politicians for wasting 3 years. And, you know, we have to remember here that this is the will of the people. You know, there was a fair and square referendum. It was agreed on before the question was asked, and the question was simple enough to require a yes or no answer, and that the winners would have 50 plus 1%. A simple majority would call it. And of course the Leavers won the vote, and it's been nothing but aggravation since. And the MPs, the Labour MPs especially, you know, Jeremy Corbyn has really very much been at the heart of this, and he's flip-flopped. Originally, he didn't want Britain to even enter Europe, and now he doesn't want us to leave. But Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party have basically blocked and befuddled and used every tactic at their disposal, every underhanded method that they could come across, every legal loophole that they could find to try and thwart Brexit from happening. And this has been, well, it's taken so long, and I think maybe, you know, we should be glad that it's taken a long time, because people can now see, you know, how in your face this all is, the deceit, you know, the lying, the misrepresentation. I mean, for goodness sake, Parliament is actually behaving in exactly the opposite way in which it was supposed to. Parliament is supposed to represent the people. And of course, when, you know, you've been around long enough, as I have, you realise, you know, that when you talk to your politician, that somehow they've got turned around, and that they are now the government's representative to you, not your representative to government. And there is a reason for this, and I may do another video on it, but it's the trickery of voting, where basically when you vote, what you're doing is you're consenting to be governed. Okay, there is some selective process, but at the end of the day, the government is going to do, especially a majority government, is going to do what it's going to do, and you've consented to allow that to happen. And as I say, I'm sure that you've all noticed, if you've engaged your local MP or MPP, you know, and you ask them questions, all of a sudden they just give you the government's position, and they don't take your side and represent you to government the way they used to. maybe on minor issues, maybe a land deal or some minor hiccup with a council planning department or something like that. Maybe they have some weight to intervene, but in any meaningful way, no, politicians really have just become, well, subservient to the bureaucracy. And it is a sad state of affairs. So it will be interesting to see, and I mean, this is an underlying problem. So, I mean, even leaving Europe is not going to solve. It solves one problem. It solves a huge problem because you've escaped the massive bureaucracy that is the EU and the idea of being governed by unelected officials, which is the whole concept of the EU. But still, they have their own internal problems within the country, within the government, and, I just see everywhere you go now, every level of government, things are so sluggish because there are so many departments and so many levels and so many hands that contracts and pieces of paper and submissions have to go through that it just, by the time you've heard the answer, it's too late. And I don't know whether this is the plan, but there are things that actually need to happen in a country. There is infrastructure that needs to be maintained, there's the healthcare service, this kind of stuff, approvals and so on and so forth. And like I say, this process has become so bogged down that it's almost meaningless. I can't tell you the number of lawsuits that have come up in the area where I live, because the municipality dragged its feet on zoning or approvals for building permits that, the builder lost money on the deal and they've sued the city for compensation. So we have to solve those other issues is what I'm saying. So anyways, hopefully Boris Johnson will get a majority and they will be leaving the EU. And of course he will be able to keep that negotiation tool on the table, the option to leave without a deal. And you can see the Europeans have tipped their hand. They are scared to death of Britain leaving without a deal. When Britain leaves without a deal, they have absolutely no control over Britain anymore. And this is terrifying because Britain is going to flourish. Trust me. There is still a lot of business, regardless if things are slowing down. We still have to have certain stuff, and that will go on. Things will shift into areas where there is business to be made, and there'll be compensation. That's how the market works. The market is a fairly fluid place, and money goes where investment is thriving. And I have complete faith in the British being an industrious nation and an industrious people who are smart enough to think their way out of this situation. Anyway, we will wait and see what happens. I am really looking forward to seeing this election and how it plays out, and I'm sure there'll be several videos before and after the election. This Brexit deal is not done, and well, we're certainly getting to the exciting point in the game. Okie dokie, well, if you've enjoyed this video, please comment, like and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. See you now. Bye.